start your phone then?
I could forget deleting it, yes, I'm totally, and then she knows she's totally good, I'm like, and then number 8.
You want that on the board?
Well, I'm sure, I gotta go, then I'm like,
Okay.
oh, this is, I think I'm missing, is the
Sure.
yes.
Are we ready?
I got my clicker, forgot it.
Okay. Thank you all for coming to our Do Your Students Want to Go to College but they don't have the skills yet presentation. My name is Julie Milligan and I serve as the transition coordinator for the school district of Menominee Falls. Go to the next slide.
See, I'm already not good with this clicker.
Randy Jensen, transition specialist at Mugwanago School District.
And I'm Jill Thomas from Pewaukee Schools, and I'm our transition program coordinator. So I also run our transition program, which is at WCTC, which is our local technical college. So College Connect is a service that we developed with the goal to really help students to navigate that gap between high school and college, specifically looking at executive functioning and self-advocacy skills that students need to be successful in a college experience.
All right, so how this got started was way back in 2016. We actually were here at this conference, and Dr. Eric Hartz, who runs the Campus Connect service through the Madison Area Metropolitan School District and Madison College, we sat through his presentation, which was kind of like this one. It was like 2 or 3 years in. It was their like initial data. They were sharing with us some of the pros and cons and challenges and successes that they had. And so we kind of had that in the back of our minds. And then we were actually having lunch one day with another one of our colleagues, and we had talked about some of our students who we thought were gonna, maybe have some challenges, but be successful at like a tech school. But then when we did our Indicator 14 surveys, like the next year, we found out that something went wrong, or they had to drop out, or it wasn't very successful, and we were like, oh, I wish there was something
Like, what
that.
can we do?
Right, like, we need to kind of fix that gap, because they were students that we were working with that we prepared them in high school to be ready for that, but then when they got there, it's like everything fell off. And that was really hard, because some of our students were really kind of like, really disappointed for them, but our hands were tied at that point because they had already graduated and we couldn't do anything.
Right.
So what we ended up doing is, all of our districts, because you do them as well, right? Indicator 14 every year.
Correct.
So they talked yesterday about school districts can do your Indicator 14 surveys once every 5 years when DPI tells you to do it, or you can do it every year kind of to track that longitudinal data. So this is my 9th year in my district, and so I've collected data every year, and we looked back historically to kind of see some of the trends. You guys have done the same. So we sat down at lunch one day and said, hey, let's see if we can do something based off of what we saw in Madison at this conference. And so we actually applied for.
Well, we
that's
actually
the next
went.
slide,
We
Yeah,
went to Madison.
forgot,
So
we
we
went
went and met with Eric and his program, and we got to see it in action. And I
Yes.
think that's really was, we had some inspiration, but actually going there, meeting with him, really kind of made us think like we could do this.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and we found there were some very good similarities into what we could do. Madison has 4 high schools, I think. They have a capacity of 44 students in their Campus Connect service. We have 1 high school each. We couldn't possibly
Yeah.
have that many number of students, nor could we support them ourselves. So we decided that once we saw what he had to do, we kind of thought we would mirror something off of what he was doing there and his team, but make it more individualized to our districts and look into maybe combining our resources and doing kind of a consortium. But it really all started coming from this conference in 2016, our indicator surveys, and really Dr. Eric Hartz has been amazing. Anytime we had a question, anything we needed, he's always been willing to kind of work with us and help us tweak what we needed to do. We needed to talk to our districts and kind of say, hey, is this something that we're able to do? It was kind of grassroots efforts. And each one of our school districts, we actually were with initially another school district, the Elmbrook School District in Waukesha. Randy's Mugwanago came our 2nd year, she joined us. But we went back to our school districts and kind of said, this is what we want to do. Here's the data that shows why we should do it, because it's what's best for kids. And we have this gray area, this gap group of students that there's a need. So our districts were actually really supportive. We started all of this in the 1920 school district. or not
School
school
year.
district, school year. And so, we started it in the middle of the pandemic. So not everything has come 100% to fruition, but our districts were really supportive of what we were doing. Some of us, you know, spoke to our school boards about it. Some of us just needed to talk to our superintendents or principals, other district director kind of staff.
But none of us got any pushback from
No.
our districts
We
at all.
got support.
If that's what kids needed, they said that's what we should do.
Right. And so we kind of already had a plan, which we'll talk about as things go through, like funding and things like that and how it would work. But we were able to come to them and say, this is kind of our plan, and we were able to kind of move forward with that.
So this next slide is just talking about, so WCTC is Waukesha County Technical College. It's our technical college in our area, Waukesha County. I would say the majority of our students probably go to WCTC. We have a couple others that we'll talk about later. MATC, that's in Milwaukee. But really we just wanted to show you the correlation of all of our students have been connected with DVR. So usually before we're thinking about students or identifying our students, they're already connected with DVR or establishing that partnership. So I think every single one of our students, except one you could see in year one, was that your
That was
student?
Jill's.
Jill's student
Yes.
that was not connected. But great supports to have DVR connected, obviously, because they're helping with that ultimate post-secondary goal. What do they want to do after? And they are in our meetings when we're meeting monthly with DVR, as well as getting them connected with student services, or the student accessibility office is called something different in every technical college. Just working as a team. So I really having that DVR partner is a good thing to remember.
So the first piece that we had to overcome was how are we gonna pay for this? So it started off with the 3 school districts, and obviously we weren't gonna get any additional staffing because we were small. So we all took on that additional caseload.
Yeah.
We just said we would do that. But paying for the tuition was kind of the big piece, like how are we gonna make this happen? So we applied for a transition readiness grant. And again, as Julie said, this was 2020, we applied, pre-COVID, and so we had big plans, we applied, we asked for $25,000 for transportation because we wanted to get our kids to campus. We had about $8,000 budgeted for tuition, and we got accepted, and then COVID hit. So, in the fall, WCTC was 100% virtual at that point. So we had to go back in, work with the DPI and adjust our budget because we didn't need transportation anymore. So we had our tuition funding in place for the first year. And as a part of that award, we also had to have a community conversation. So that gave us the funding that we needed. So we did do a community conversation around employment, specifically, and how to get kids back to work during COVID as we were like starting to re-engage. And so in retrospect, it was a really great requirement because it forced us to meet with employers and DVR and administrators and families. And so that kind of, helped fuel that process. But COVID definitely put a kink in our plans. So that was our first year of funding. So that next year we had to all come up with our own funding plans. And so each school district has come up with their own kind of set of plans for funding and what students are allowed to do. So I can speak for Pewaukee. We use our transition money from that Indicator 14 survey. So I've always done the Indicator 14 survey, and I just have become more aggressive with it, and I will hunt kids down and
Yes.
find them.
Yes.
I will stalk you on social media. I will call your mom's best friend to find you, because we need those funds for the next group of students.
Right.
And I'm just really kidding, but kids are pretty good about doing that. But yeah, that's where our funding comes from. And so for my district, we allow students to take 1 class per term. And so at WCTC currently each semester, there's 2 terms. So for my students, they can take 4 classes during an academic year, which is up to 12 credits that they would get covered by the school district.
Right. And for the falls, we do the same thing in terms of that Indicator 14 survey. If you guys have not done it, like I know before I started in this district, I had no idea what that was. I was a special ed teacher, and St. Norbert's did our surveys only once every 5 years. Once I got more involved with TIG and figuring out what all this was, sometimes for 5 minutes of work, you can get $1,000 back for that one survey. So it really is a benefit to do those surveys. It's also helpful when the school district, when you do it yourself, because the kids are more likely to answer your survey questions if you're a staff that they know as compared to having St. Norbert's do it. So I'm a huge proponent of that. That's how we fund it as well. And I also hunt on my kids. I spent a lot of time figuring out, can you hear me just a second? I'll get you. Spent a lot of time figuring out some best practices around increasing our response rate, and that was like a whole nother project I did with my district. And so I have things that I do every year to kind of keep in contact with some of those kids and their parents, and during IEPs and stuff. So that's a big deal for us. But for our district, we only pay for one class a semester. They're able to take up to 6 credits at a time, but we really felt as a district that we wanted the students to have some buy-in. And so, you know, for us, we thought, like, if we're paying for all of their tuition, then what kind of skin in the game do they have? So each of us, and Elmbrook, when they started, did Megan pay all?
I think she was kind of similar to me. I think
Right,
they
okay.
could take 1 class per term.
Sure.
So up to 4.
Right, so we started it with a grant as a consortium, but now, as much as we have like a structure in place, each of our own districts do it a little bit differently based on our individual student need and what our districts are willing to work with us with. So there's that. Before you go, I'm just gonna jump into that
I think
question.
you answered my question, because I was gonna ask, how do you budget for that, considering that the funding is different from year to year, depending on how many students you have graduate, so I think you could answer that a little bit.
That's a good question. I think because, so right now,
And how many successful closures you have in that too, also, on the success rate, because that ebbs and
For our
flows
indicator
from year to
14s,
year.
yes.
yes, so we've actually, so this last year I had 100% response rate, and out of, I tend to have pretty, I don't know, because I just hunt people down, I don't know. I had 100% response rate this last year, and out of the 32, maybe 31, I think 25 or 26 met criteria.
Yeah.
So I've,
Good.
I-
But
it's
some-
about a-
Some years I have 20, and some years I have 6 correctors. Like, it just depends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it's hard to budget for that funding is what I'm
Yeah.
kind of
That's-
getting
And
at.
I would
Yes.
say from my district, I have an agreement with my director that if we were ever in a situation where indicator 14 didn't bring in enough money,
Yeah.
we still feel like if it's in the best interest of the student,
sure.
we're gonna find that money, because
Yeah.
we're not talking about a lot of students, so it's really
Yeah.
not a huge budgetary outlay for us.
right, and between, you'll see in another slide, like between our 3 districts, we have 7 kids. So like for me, I usually have 1, maybe 2 kids,
Yeah.
that's $1,100.
Okay.
So like for me, that's how we're very different from Madison, we don't
Yes.
have that many kids. And so I would also imagine, I haven't had that conversation yet, but I would imagine
We would
what's
find
best for kids, we'd find that money.
Yeah.
I'd pull it out of my own budget for that. And how
And
do
so,
you?
yeah, so I'll talk a little bit. I do mine differently. I do the indicator 14 surveys as well. Julie's helped me a lot with the, like, Andy, of explaining, like, how do you get that success high rate of people, you know, when you're calling, and I get responses. So, I have Google Forms. I do so many, I make sure that I have their cell phones and their emails, and make sure I have the correct contact information. But we use that money for elsewhere, like transportation in our district. I started, before they asked me to join College Connect, I was already doing, helping our students with disabilities with Start College Now and dual enrollment. So they were already taking classes, and that is funded through the school district. So if you're not aware of that, if you have a CTE coordinator, ask your counselors the funding for that. So basically Start College Now, all that is an application, a very simple application that they're filling out their personal information, and they're writing their classes down that they want to take. Dual enrollment's a little bit different. They're an actual program. They're at WCTC for at least half the day, and they're back at our high school the other half the day. So the funding for our district is coming from there, but now joining them, I have more of a process. So, and we'll get through that of the application process and everything that they go through. So is there a right or wrong way with the funding? It's what your district feels comfortable with. If you had the funds for indicator 14 and you're used to using those, go for it. They've talked a little bit about, maybe I do want to start the funding through Start College Now. It gets a little tricky if students do fail a class, they're paying for the class.
Well, and there's
So-
deadlines as well.
and there's- yes.
You need to be identified much earlier.
The deadline is a huge thing, so, and it would be maybe different for your college, or your college in your area, but, so like for my fall seniors next year, or some I have seniors, some are 5th-year seniors, and we'll talk about that. I have to have those applications in March 1st. So you have to do a lot of pre-planning and meeting with the special ed teams and their parents and all that. So I think this is a great way of doing it, but maybe it's a little more planning in the front, so.
So we've uploaded this to the website, the Ed Events website, and everything we're talking about I've linked. Please email me if for some reason the link doesn't work. Sometimes I miss that. But we worked really hard to make sure, like, if you're not familiar with Start College Now or do enrollment, like, we put everything in here so you can go back and research it in order to kind of have more background on that.
Because we could talk about probably that.
Yes.
For a long time.
Yeah.
So if you guys have additional questions, we
Yep.
can talk about it later. Goals, our goal for College Connect.
So College Connect, so again, our goal is to assist students who may need that additional support, knowing that in the long term they could be successful. Typically, we're looking at developing those post-secondary opportunities. When we work with students, again, it's really mostly executive functioning and self-advocacy skills that they really need the most intensive supports on. So that's our goal in creating this and as we work with students.
All right, partnership between school districts and colleges. So we kind of broke this up to help you guys understand how we start the process. But the first is identifying our students. So I'm talking a lot with, I'm actually the department chair for just 11th and 12th graders at the high school as well. So I'm talking with my case managers, and I know the kids pretty well because I'm sitting in all their IEPs and LEA in those as well. But who would be a good candidate for this program? Who wants to go to post-secondary but maybe needs just that additional extra support. So that is kind of our first part of it. Also, we talk about, are they meeting the entrance requirements? We just kind of had those conversations. It's a little bit different for me because Start College Now, they're not applying to the WCTC yet. They just need to fill out the application process. For them, they're actually enrolled.
Yes, they need to make their way into WCTC on their own and have the skills to be able to sign up for a class, whether it's through a direct application to the college and be accepted, or if they're going to be a general course taker, that they have that skill level available to them.
Right, and we talked about placement tests. Do they need to
Yeah,
take a placement
so
test?
all of those things are determined by WCTC because again, you have to get yourself in the door.
And this year we expanded outside of WCTC and added Milwaukee Area Technical College, and their admission process is different from WCTC's. So they don't have a placement test. They actually have, if you want to go, you get to go, you get in. And so they've kind of eliminated some of the barriers that they saw students were having in the past, so that each school is a little bit different, but the students still need to be, it's not up to us whether they go or get in or not. It really is up to that college, right? And so we're meeting with those staff ahead of time. They're invited to the IEPs so like this year would be the spring IEPs. We'd hold like a transition IEP, so the colleges are coming to those IEPs and having conversations. We're talking with them about it. Parents are involved, everyone's involved, so that we can see what's going to be a good fit.
Right. And the last step is just saying, like, a student that needs that extra help with getting support, like getting connected with student services at the college level, making sure they're staying connected with DVR. So you're like that middleman person helping them navigate through. So you wouldn't pick a student that maybe is already ready. They're already doing that on their own, right? They're kind of in that middle gray area that they need that support maybe one more year to transition to college, to feel comfortable, to be successful. And then, so that's kind of how we're picking out our students. Enrolling,
Right.
is that you?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's me, right?
Yep.
That's you.
It is.
So enrollment, we kind of talked somewhat about this, but the students are going to be enrolled in their prospective college, but they're also students that are still enrolled in their public school district. We will hold their diploma, so they technically are not graduating. They'll be fifth year, in some of the cases, like you have fourth year kids, yeah.
Yep.
So they'll be held for like fifth year. So in our district, we have like our 18 to 21 services as our umbrella, and we have our young adult services, which would be like a traditional beyond 18 service, and then we have College Connect, because they're all kind of in that age group. And so in all of those cases, diplomas are held. And so that causes some opportunities and doors to open, but it also closes a couple other ones that we'll talk about in a minute. But they're receiving instructions, like my students never come back to the high school, I guess unless they're gonna visit or something, but they don't come here. I go to them, and all of their classes are MATC or WCTC courses, those are the instructors they have. The biggest connection I have is with the SAO or the Student Accessibility Office. You guys have a little bit different situation, but all of our students are still high school students enrolled in their public schools, and then they take classes at the college, yes.
And then the third part of that is how we assist them. So again, we're trying to build that bridge so that they can be successful on their own. So we're gonna collaborate with the Student Accessibility Office and the support services. So at WCTC, we make sure that they have an accommodation plan in place, that they're meeting regularly with their student accessibility person, connecting with those support services. So on WCTC's campus, you can have tutoring, you can have note takers. There's academic supports on campus for anyone to walk into. If you need help in the math lab or the writing lab, you can access that virtually. So those are the services we're teaching the students about and helping them to get connected so that hopefully that they're going to develop that sense of independence and reach out and use the services on their own. So again, it's really about that executive functioning and self-advocacy, and that's the biggest piece. So we meet, most of the students we meet weekly with, in the beginning of the year. Sometimes it's more intense meetings more often, and those kind of fade a little bit as the year goes on, as the student gets more independent. But we're really kind of that liaison between the school district, because we're providing that special education minutes and student accessibility services on campus, and then also keeping them in contact with DVR if they're a DVR consumer.
Yeah, it's 10 minutes, like when you, I mean, I know what it means, but I mean, like, what do you say in your APM minutes you're providing?
So I do like very minimal SDI minutes, and it's usually around executive functioning and self-advocacy skills.
Yeah.
So like when I meet with a student, it's, you know, in the beginning of the year, it's like, how are you keeping track of your schedule? How are you managing, you know, homework assignments, long-term projects? What tool is gonna work for you? You know, how are you gonna email an instructor? You know, sometimes we have to teach them how to send an appropriate email. So that's how we write it into the IP. And then the other thing is for time, like we write it like based on the WCTC
Yes.
calendar. So their minutes, I won't continue to meet with you outside of,
Their calendar.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But and you have to have that SDI minutes to be able to approve for keeping their, like,
Correct.
still active. payment.
Right, they have to have a current IP, yes.
Right. Yep.
Julie, how does
Yes.
that work in your case if, the falls only supports one class per semester? Like,
We
so
write
if-
it on the term, so they're receiving minutes based on the WCTC or MATC term, so like,
But you have but you support, like, so write 4 classes, but you only do 2. So then is there a block of time that they're not in any classes?
Yeah, winter break. But what happens, like for me, so I actually just had this situation. So, the student I'm supporting at MATC right now, I knew was gonna need a lot of extra support, especially in the upfront. And so I think I did,
you did it by month, didn't you?
yes, I did it 30 minutes twice a month while the college is in session. But I meet with him every week for an hour. And so I tend to, because he needs that
Right,
support
because
right
you
now.
knew that you would still see him in the beginning of December and
Correct.
the end of January.
Right, so I
because of
still
winter
meet
break.
twice a month, and then he actually
Yeah.
went out of the country with his family over winter break, but I was still able to meet with him twice in January and twice in December for at least 30 minutes. It kind of gets sketchy a little bit, like
Yeah.
MATC sometimes closes, they have MATC days when the whole campus is shut down and employees have meetings, like PD meetings or whatever. And so then I would meet with him, because when this particular student isn't at MATC, he's actually in our young adult services, so I had access to him while he was still in our high school, so he would split his time. And so when MATC was closed, or like today, or yesterday, I usually meet with him on Thursdays, so we had to reschedule because I was here. We just worked on it and I just made sure I got my minutes, but
You do have to be thoughtful when you're
Yes.
writing your IEP to kind of account for the fact of like, there's no purpose in meeting during winter break when they're off
they
for
have
a
no
month.
work to be doing it.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Is this happening mostly with your 18 to 21-year-old students?
Their age is 18 to 21, but except for the student I have right now, well, you've had,
Go to the next slide, right?
yeah, go to the
Yes,
next,
good.
yeah, so.
Because we're gonna talk about the demographics.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, this is just,
Yeah, just click through them.
okay,
Yeah, I think.
yeah, this is just talking about kind of reminders of, is your student ready? Are they ready for College Connect? So are they able to attend class without reminders? A lot of these is self-advocacy, completing homework with reminders, self-advocating on their disability. Can they talk about their disability and talk about the supports that they need? So you really think of that student that is a good self-advocate, again, but maybe just needs a little more support, a little more reminders. Can they get themselves into campus? This is a big one when you talk about transportation, okay? Do they have their driver's license? If they don't have their driver's license, how are they going to get there? I've had parents bring them, but I've also had DVR. Remember this, DVR? If parents are asking, usually they'll add that to their IPE.
Yes.
So, that's just a good thought, because I have definitely had DVR transport students, and from Aguanago to our technical college is about a half an hour, 25 minutes, so.
Same for us, yeah.
Yeah,
To answer, I'm sorry, whoever asked that question back there. So like for my students, typically would be like they'd come back for their 5th year, but they wouldn't have been a student who would be traditionally in our young adult services. This is the first year I have somebody we're piloting it this year as kind of a hybrid between young adult services and College Connect. I had him on my caseload as a freshman, and his goal and his family goal was always for him to go on to college. When he was a freshman, it was to go to Madison. As we've had transition conversations along the way, this is our step on the path to his ultimate goal of a 4-year university. So this particular family I've known for 5-6 years now, but like my student for next year has completed all his requirements for graduation just like anyone else did in 4 years, and I'm gonna support him 1 more year.
So Julie, you have an 18, 21-year-old program.
Yeah, our young adult services, yes.
Yeah, because that's what you're calling your young adult
Yes.
services. You helped me start hours in Alaska.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. So, here's my next question, and if you're gonna address this later, or you don't wanna address it to the whole group, that's totally fine, we can email. I love this, what you're talking about, this is amazing, 'cause there's several students coming to mind. The question becomes, with having a, young adult service, an 18, after the typical 4-year service, and then doing some things like this, is there any, difficulty or anything with administration regarding, students who are not meeting, graduation, they're not technically graduating.
Indicator
until-
1.
Huh?
They hit on indicator one.
Right, so that, yes, so and I have heard that that's an issue. So what happens is, if we hold kids for 5th year, 6th year, 7th year, they don't get counted for their,
Correct. So we get.
the average,
indicator
right,
Yes.
so,
The ding isn't that big
It's-
though,
yes.
just so the ding is
It's
not going to
not.
change the
because
scope
you
of
count
work.
them when they
Yes.
actually graduate.
Well, we're hearing it is, so
Well,
I'm
and-
asking how you.
And I'll say this, in Pewaukee, we were always about 100% graduation rates.
Correct.
And we took the ding because it's what's
We
right
did
for
too.
kids.
It's what's best for kids, same thing for
And
us.
so we just we had to
Yep.
just eat it, it's what's right
Yes.
for kids.
And they get counted on the year they exit anyway. So I had this really big conversation, I think with you.
Yes.
Actually, was it last year?
But yes, it was
Yes.
last year, but the biggest thing I'll say to you is usually your special ed director supporting you, it's your principal that's
Yeah.
not supporting you.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
it's the battle between the principals.
yeah.
Yes, and so, because that number is very important to some very important people in the
Yeah.
district, and I get that,
Yeah.
but
I-
we've had support.
Yeah, and I second what they're saying, but I will say our indicator 14 results have showed
Yes.
our post-secondary, our students going on to post-secondary have increased significantly, and I kind of want to pat ourselves on the back for like
Right.
starting a because that's
Yes.
allowing our students that maybe wouldn't have done this
Yes.
without this extra support year. So yes, they will probably question that, but I think this, you know what I'm saying?
Right, use your
Yeah.
data. That's
Yeah.
another reason we do our indicator 14 every year, is because we can go back and find those trends.
Yeah, and we're low on post-secondary,
Right.
so I'm-
Yeah.
So then you could talk on that, yeah. Yeah,
I just have a really quick
Yep.
clarifying question. I'm from Minnesota, so sorry. I'm guessing that your
That correct.
18 plus is students with more severe profound needs?
Yeah, so like a traditional Beyond 18 would be students whose disability impacts them pretty significantly.
Right.
Essential element type students.
Yes.
Okay, so, and in our program, it's, we have a lot of, like federal setting 1 and 2 students, LD, autism, EBD, a lot of fifth year seniors who didn't quite get it together in high school, and so we're doing a lot of this, like encouraging them to like, in order to get your credits, we can get you into a college class if that's something you're interested in. So they're not as, I guess what I'm saying is we have 2 programs. We have that, which is the higher needs students, which is, sounds like what your
Our
traditional program is.
Sure.
And then we have this other program that we started about 3 years ago, which is the low.
The great, like the middle kids?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not going right to college right
Yep,
away, and
yep.
they're, you know,
Some may
more than
just
the
go to work,
workforce.
some may go to college.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, okay. And we have seen huge growth in that. Last year, we had a program of 24 students. This year, we have a program of 50.
Wow. How many high schools do you have?
2.
Okay, wow,
There's
wow.
the dash, there has to be.
They're,
There's- you have to have
they're
data.
hearing about what we can do. They're hearing they can go to college with support.
Yeah.
And their parents are
100%,
willing
yes.
to, like, say, okay, hold your diploma for a couple of years.
Yep.
This is someone who's gonna walk you through
Mhm.
the process.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep, I think that
Yeah.
we'll answer a lot of questions when we keep
Right,
going
sorry.
here too.
Okay.
No,
Clarifying
that was awesome to hear too.
Yes, no, thank you.
It's 11 o'clock, Julie.
It's 11 o'clock, okay, so I'm gonna talk really quick, everything is linked here. So basically what we needed to do, mainly because I'm a very detail-oriented, structured person, I needed some kind of, hey, I'm real, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
I needed some kind of like skeleton, I needed an outline of something instead of just kinda, because COVID messed everything up, so.
Yeah, so this is how we do it.
This is how we do it. We have an application process, which I've linked here. I've set it up, hopefully, so that you guys are able to go through all of the sections and the questions. It's basic demographic information. The things that was important for us to know is what services were they receiving in high school? What are they expecting in college? There's a part where the student has to answer like a short essay question. Tell us about yourself. What are your goals? What supports do you want to use? Things like that. The case manager works with them to fill out this application, and then they answer a question about the readiness of the student as well, and then that gets turned in. We put together a time-limited process. We have a structure, but each of us does it just a little bit differently because we need to meet the needs of our students. Mine's already done. We're holding interviews this week when we get back, so that we have enough time to work with case managers, students, and families the rest of the semester to get everything set up with the school that they're going to.
And I think the most important thing, though, to point out is the home district always has final say.
Yes.
Right.
So we're all on the interview panel, but if it's like my kid, I'm the one taking out, like I normally don't have a caseload. This is like something additional that we're doing. And so I need to be able to know that I have the time for those SDI minutes. The half hour from Menominee Falls to WCTC or MATC, I have to know I have to do it. So they're gonna give me feedback and say, these are some red flags, these are some really good areas, but I have that final say of what that looks like.
And I do think that, like, we're kind of pre-identifying, we kind of know that these students are gonna be good for the program.
Right.
But it's really nice, like, that you guys put this together, so my students that we're kind of doing Start College Now already, there's a process now. There
Right.
is an interview, so they know that it is important and it is a program
Exactly.
and we're gonna take it seriously.
And it was super important for me to have an authentic experience for our students. Moving from entitlement to eligibility, I needed students to apply. And even if I knew I was going to take them, I needed them to potentially think they might not get in, right? We're also not we work really closely with the case managers. We're not usually interviewing kids that we wouldn't take, but I needed them to go through that process. And then I wait a couple days. Like, interviews are on Tuesday, I might not send the acceptance thing till Friday, so they kind of sit on it a little bit, right? It's like applying for a job or applying to get into college any other way. It was important to me that we had an authentic process. That's Randy.
Oh, yeah, Randy, you're green.
That's you, Randy.
But I
Go
can talk
ahead.
if you want me.
Whatever.
So College Connect, so service description, so we talked about how students are accepted. Our top priority areas, obviously it's employment related to college and vice versa. We know that students who have some college, even if it's just a class or two, have better opportunities when it comes to work. And then family and students and college responsibilities. Okay, so yeah, we are very clear with families about what we can and cannot do. It's a different service model than high school. And the accommodations at a college level are different than high school, and nothing will be modified. So we have those conversations with families. Sometimes it's hard for mom and dad to understand, like, you can't call the instructor, and guess what? Neither can I. I can assist your students in sending an email, but so some of those responsibilities shift. Connections that we definitely support are DVR and the accommodation staff. The instructors, again, we're supporting students in building their self-advocacy, so they are emailing, they are connecting with their instructors, not us. At WCTC, we have a program called Navigators, which is a case manager, and it's for students with or without disabilities, but it's identified students who need more support. And so they become those case managers when we fade out. And their role is to help students be successful in their classes, access services and social rec opportunities. Their goal is to get students into classes being successful and to retain them as college students. Again, I think I talked about academic supports and tutoring, assistive technology. Obviously, there's a testing center for those accommodations for students who need that. And then helping students to connect to all the social rec clubs, extracurriculars, all those things that make you feel like a college student and develop new relationships.
Absolutely. All of those connections we do in that first year so that when we leave, they have that team set up for them already. They know who to talk to, they know where to go, because we've made those connections happen. The next couple slides are data and demographics, so I'll kind of go through them pretty quickly. Please feel free to ask questions at the end. But basically, this kind of talks about each year how many kids we had with our collective schools. We have a total of 19 that have gone through 5 semesters, so our data is updated as of the end of first semester this past December. The disability categories that we have, that students have participated: autism, emotional behavioral disability, intellectual disability, OHI. All of our students who have OHI were identified as having ADHD as well. And then we have a variety of students who have, students who have a variety of different specific learning disabilities who are also participating with us. And then we just have the age categories of.
And the reason, if you're thinking, I thought this was an 18 to 21 program, you see we had a 16-year-old, 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Those are all my students that were doing Start College Now dual enrollment. So they were seniors in high school.
Okay. And here's just a breakdown of the number of credits that were earned. There's 151 credits that were earned in 5 semesters. So like that was way more than we thought was ever gonna happen. And again, 1 credit earned, or even if you took a class and failed it, they still gained the experience of doing that where they would have never had that if they just graduated after 4 years. So this is the credits based on primary disability category. These are the credits earned over each year. That 3rd year was just the first semester. And this breaks down the data in terms of the types of programs that the students were enrolled in. They were enrolled in technical diplomas, certificates, associate's degrees, and this is then how it broke down the number of individual. These are all the different types of programs that they were enrolled in. If there's a star, it just means, like, I think we had 3 students who were in early childhood education, but they were like a technical diploma and then an associate's degree too. So this gives you an idea. We did have 2 students take courses, 1 each, that were for non-credit. And then those 2 students actually were the students who were undecided or were general course takers when you're looking at the data.
All right, success stories. This is always fun to go over.
Quickly.
Quickly, okay, really quickly. Okay, so Miss Bethany over here, she, SLD, math and reading, struggled a little bit in high school throughout that process. She really got connected with academic support and student services, worked with DVR, and she actually was a 5th year. So she stayed on an extra year. She was that 18 to 21 program that we're talking about that she stayed in with me. She actually would come to school in my office and meet with me for meetings. So didn't attend McGuanago High School at all, just at WCTC, but came to me. Her biggest struggle was communicating when there was a difficult situation with a professor. So I would have to be that middle person. She actually filled out a consent to release so I could help that communication, which was really nice. So I could kind of be that middle person. She's currently still in the early childhood program, and she's on a honor roll. So awesome, and she's my babysitter. So, which is wonderful. Miss Regan, she is a current senior this year, dual enrollment, doing criminal justice. Really struggles with math. Had to take a math course her first semester, this last semester. I would come with her to WCTC because she was very nervous about getting connected with academic support. So different at the college level, meeting and having to sign in and not understanding where to go. So I met with her for 2 or 3 times. She got comfortable and would meet with them daily, and she ended up with a C+ in her math class. So I was very happy and she's doing really well and enjoying it. Ethan, this was a different student who was actually at our alternative school, struggled really with mental health and behaviors in the regular school, and I really thought, maybe if he got into something that he enjoyed, he really wanted to go into carpentry, and we tried it out, started with a couple of classes, and he's still in the program at WCTC, has been successful. He really struggles with organization. I really helped him with checking email, coming up with a system of how to keep in track of your assignments. So stuff that we're helping with already at the high school level, but continuing that at the college level to show them how that works. So those are my 3 success stories. And of course,
the
challenges.
And again, we really feel like if a student takes a class, even if they don't pass, they have failed up because they learned something, and they're going to be more prepared if they come back and take another class at some point. We've had students that really struggled with accepting and using services. I mean, that's happened. Again, I think I talked a little bit about parents and, really getting them to understand the differences between high school and college and what their role is in this new environment. Students not using self-advocacy skills, not responding to emails from your instructor, not asking for help. That's a hard one. And then the last one, students struggle with skill level and pacing. We have had a couple students that, their skill level is low, and even with a lot of support, they're not able to meet the expectation in a fast-paced 8-week class.
Yeah, and that shifted. WCTC went from semester courses, 16-week courses, the year we started this,
Yes.
to 8-week courses.
And it's a fast pace.
And it's the same content into 8-week courses. So our students are coming from high school for like a year-long class maybe to an 8-week class. So that was a struggle for them as well.
Definitely. Yep.
All right, ways we have improved. So expanded to a 4th school district, that was me. Elmbrook is also part of us at College Connect. Added another technical college. Julie worked at MATC, another technical college in our area this year. The formal application process that we have is wonderful. We have an FAQ that,
Talk about next.
yes, we'll talk about next. And different funding. So we talked about different funding that you can use throughout your school district, as well as improving networking campus-wide. So finding those different student services and whatnot that we can connect our students with.
So another thing that kind of came out of this, my district, and I think you guys are too, we're a really big continuous improvement district, and we do a lot of plus deltas all the time. So what we did, we sat down after that first year, and I actually wrote a case study and tracked all of this data. We fill out surveys after each semester on all the kids who do this, and I track a ton of data in order to be able to give you the statistics we have here and report back to our districts. And so something that came out of that is some of the structure that we have, the application process, diversifying our funding and things like that. But we were also getting a lot of the same questions over and over again from parents. And so then we put together this frequently asked
And it's
question
hyperlinked for you.
document.
It is here for you.
It's linked, it's in there, please go look at it. It's like 3 pages long.
Yeah.
And it will help better understand all the details of why we do
And I
it, how we
did
do
print
it.
55 copies, and I just remembered they're in my car right now.
Oh, so we
have
have
that.
And
So
some of
it's
these
there.
you talked about. I know we
Right.
talked about the
They'll be all
diploma. We're gonna hold their
Yeah,
diploma.
how long? College Connect is 1 year long. Madison does it for up to 3 years. If our students can't, if they need more support after 1 year, then maybe that's not the right fit at that time for them. Anyone is able to apply for FAFSA, but because we still hold their diploma and they're technically high school students, they can't accept the money if they get approved.
Yep.
Everyone is required to have their own transportation. They can take up to 6 credits at a time, and there is an application process.
Any other questions that we didn't cover?
Right, anything else you'd like, yes, how can we help you?
I just had a quick question about, you mentioned one student is a current senior, so do you have students that are currently seniors and then some that are post-grad?
Yes,
Randy does.
But only for 1 year, or?
Right, not post, they haven't graduated. They're 5th year.
Okay, but
So-
you said someone's a current, but the girl in the middle was a current senior,
Yep, so she, at that point, she was ready, she wanted to do dual enrollment, but
Okay.
still needed that support, so she was doing it as a senior.
Okay,
So
not a 5th year.
she was not a 5th year, but yeah, and then I've had 5th year, like my Bethany I was talking about, she
Yeah.
stayed on 5th year, and it's
Okay.
only a 1-year program, so that my
Okay.
senior, I knew she wasn't gonna stay on, but she needed help that
Gotcha.
senior year.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I can see the biggest obstacle being students don't wanna delay their diplomas. It's coming, like, why?
And we've had a couple families that have opted not to do this, and
Yes.
receive these services for that very reason. And there's no
Exactly.
way around it with Wisconsin
Yes.
law, so
Yep.
That's the hard
It's
choice.
her personal choice.
It-
Yes.
absolutely.
They're opting to.
Yep, I had a student all ready to go, and then her mom realized that her diploma would say the year after, and they said no.
I
We
do
don't
know.
want her diploma to say the year
Yeah.
after.
I do remind my students though, like all my fifth year that are staying on for this program, they're still walking. So
Yes, they
no one,
participate.
no one else knows. They would never know. They're just not getting that diploma when they're walking, but they're walking with their classmates. And I will say, you know what, you can meet me at the library. No one even needs
Yes.
to know that we're connected.
Yeah. I'm sorry for like the rush at the end. We want to answer as many questions as possible. I think time is up, but please come and ask us questions. We're here to answer anything that you need to know. And everything is linked on there. If you can't access it, please email me. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So you need this, right? That's what you're doing here. You're welcome. I'm gonna do that. Hang on, I'm plugged in. So, and this is yours. Okay. You're welcome. There you go. Hi. iPad. Hi. Yes, sorry.
It's nice to meet you.
Shelley, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so good to see you.
Good to meet you.
Yes.
And then is the one in the blue the one that you're introducing?
That's me. Yeah.